Alright, Travis Wingate, so it appears Mormons are still out on social media trying to dispel the news that the church has been stealing their tithing money to make over $100 billion. Again, that's not the real problem. The real problem is what I'm suing the church for. That they're taking money for tithing from children, from the elderly, and from disabled people who are receiving Social Security for their daily survival. That's a greater crime than just taking adults who are forced to pay in order to go to the temple. So that's number one priority. This $100 billion claim, though, Mormons are still trying to spread fake news. That's right, Mormons are spreading fake news. And they're doing it in the same way that they're making the accusation. Because the accusation is that, oh, these are just accusations and therefore they're not true. Because, well, read it. And so what are Mormons doing when they say that others are making false accusations? They are making false accusations. That which they falsely accuse in others reveals the same and worse fault in themselves. Or, if you want Jesus as your guide, the beam in the moat. Remember that one? So, here we go. This is Daniel Moore, and YouTube has tossed him over to my spam folder. So this is probably a Russian troll who's trying to spread misinformation for the church. Again, the Russians and the church are in bed with each other. Remember Nelson coming out in 2018 when he first started? We're going to build a temple in Russia. What? Russia is run by Putin, who runs the Russian Mafia. All who do business with Russia do business with the Russian oligarchs, who are the Russian Mafia. You do not come out clean dealing with Russia. So right then and there, I knew the church was doomed. If they went in innocent as a lamb, which I know they didn't, they certainly came out as corrupt as a wolf. And so, and to hear Nelson say, there's going to be rumors, just ignore them. Uh-huh. Oh, man. And then Max Roth on Fox 13 News Utah comes out and reports that the church has received $32 billion before General Conference from LLC corporations. We're unaware of where the money came from, but these are the list of the LLC corporations that the church is involved with. Uh-huh. That's the typical Russian tactic. They make you launder money. Alright, so again, this Daniel Moore starts off by saying, this stockpiling billions accusation hasn't been proven. Guys, seriously? The claim or the reporting that the guy is making, David Nielsen, he worked there. And what he did was make a 74-page document that he gave to the IRS. You don't give the IRS fake news, because they're going to look at it and go, toss it in the shredder. And so, for somebody who's claiming to be Mormon, and I've watched Kwaku's video. Daniel Moore is the guy who sent the other note saying, watch Kwaku's video. I don't agree with all that Kwaku says. Then why are you sending me his video? I don't like Kwaku. Everything he says is an abomination. And if you don't understand what I mean by that, when you watch him on a regular basis, look up the list of fallacies. If you don't know what a fallacy is, they're lies, generally put. And so, unsound arguments. If you were in a debate and you were using fallacies for your argument, you would lose each and every single time. Unless for some reason the teacher doesn't allow sound argument. So, yeah. Proven? Seriously? The guy works for them. He gave the IRS their documentation. He gave charts, graphs, dollar figures, all that stuff to the IRS. You can download it on the internet. You'll go to the guy's video. He did YouTube videos. 2 of them, a summary and the full version. He tells you where to go to get the 74-page document. I got it. And so, to have people come and tell me, it's not proven, church is still true, I just laugh in your faces. You guys are absurd. It's unbelievable. And so, yeah. And then he puts in the first presidency statement. He apparently has not seen the other video where I specifically go over the first presidency statement. Because they use the parable of the talents. And so, yes, I've done several videos where I give other examples from Scripture where they chose the wrong parable. The prophets of the church using talents, showing their ignorance of Scripture. Unbelievable. Just truly unbelievable. I mean, growing up as a kid, I listened to the prophets and they generalize things. They never get into specifics. And so I'm like, okay, be good, all right. But to be specific like this reveals that these guys aren't inspired by God at all. They're not directed by Jesus. These guys are frauds. Outright frauds. Because the parable of the talents was about our souls, using money as the example. And so the other passages about Jesus and the rich man, and Jesus and the money changers at the temple, and Jesus and his treatment of the poor, those are what you look for in regards to finances for church operations. And the church obviously isn't doing that. They're not following the example of Jesus. They talk the talk, they have his name right smack in the center of the title, but Jesus is far from their hearts. Wait a minute, doesn't Isaiah say something like that? They draw near to me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. Unbelievable. And Mormons just goes right over their head. Prophets are true. Prophets are true. Just so frustrating to live in Utah and to just associate with Mormons that are just dumber than doorstops. But he keeps going. My frustration gets bigger. And so then he says, claims being currently circulated are based on a narrow perspective and limited information. Okay. Partly true. But he's bypassing the original guy who made the complaint. That's what he's doing. He's saying that this was all made up by other people. That there is no David Nielsen. That he didn't do a 74-page report or 2 videos talking about it, or his brother who talked about it in an interview. He's in denial of the source. And this is typical of Russian propaganda and the Republicans who like to follow Russia. But yeah, this is also common of Mormons when they try to defend the church. You can't defend something that's wrong. It's wrong. So there is no defense. And so, but he is right in that the second-hand, third-hand people who are doing this are not quoting verbatim everything that he talks about. You can't. And as a result, yes, there's limited information because you have to summarize. And it's a narrow perspective only if you're not Mormon and you don't understand the process. Or if you're like Kwaku and like to throw out there, well, these people aren't knowledgeable on tax return. So you are, Kwaku. Oh, okay, well, I'll believe you then, Kwaku. They just throw out accusations of what they call accusations. And that's a fishing fallacy. That's a white supremacist tactic. They make false accusations to fish for the person to confess to it. And then they go, gotcha. And then they keep repeating it over and over again. Sort of like Trump calling Elizabeth Warren Pocahontas. Keeps calling her Pocahontas, 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 Pocahontas. She does her DNA. And it's not enough to qualify her to claim that she's American Indian. So Trump goes, gotcha. So, you know, it's a bullying tactic, is what it is. And this guy is doing it based on a narrow perspective, limited information. And so then he puts in the link for KUTV, which is the Utah channel that the church owns, Channel 5. And then he points out that KUTV is reporting on the Washington Post article about the whistleblower report to the IRS. And so, yes, the more you go to sources far from the original guy, the less information that you'll have which is accurate. That's what I keep telling you guys about studying church history. Don't go to sources that aren't near the original source. You gotta get the original source. So that's why I did my first video when I saw it on ABC4 News, Utah, and was like, oh my goodness, I got to talk about this. And then I found out the guy did his video, and I saw his video. And I went, oh, okay. Now you know the rest of the story. Now I knew the rest of the story, because I heard it from his mouth. His mouth. Not the Washington Post, not a news caster talking about the Washington Post article, not from some YouTube person like me. I went to the source. I saw his video, heard it from his lips, and then it was confirmed when I saw the interview of his brother. Yeah. So, I'm sorry, Mormons and Russian trolls defending the church. You can't defend the church on this. You're going to do it, but you look stupid when you do it. And I know that there's going to be Mormons watching this. Oh, I don't like being called stupid. And they'll put a dislike, and then you'll say, hey, where is it? I don't see the dislike here. So, dumb. But he keeps going. The confidential complaint was filed November 21st by a former senior portfolio manager. Yeah, he's former because he quit. Oh, man. And so here they have Eric Hawkins, church spokesperson, and he tells 2 News. I'm supposed to trust that he's accurate on this because he doesn't provide a link. So again, you see, he's doing what he's accusing others of doing. We receive these types of questions from time to time, and therefore prepared a rather extensive description of the church's financial processes and procedures. ... The church does not provide information about specific transactions or financial decisions. Yeah, that's the problem. So, it's just, Mormons, do you not see this? They're purposely keeping secrets. They're a church. They're not creating the new technology that they don't want the other religions to steal from them. They're not a government who are planning to bomb some other country. They're a religion. The church used to be transparent about how much money they were bringing in and where it went. And so, like I said, the church lies. Just outright lies. And so, yeah, the church does not provide information. We have no comment. That's all it is. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want to get in trouble. So they keep it a secret and hope that everybody will just go away. And so he says, the reporter does not have all the facts. See, he's bypassing the original guy and his original report, which has been made available to the public. You don't have to go to a reporter. You can go to David Nielsen. But Mormons want to protect the church, and so they stray from the source because the source is too hot to touch. So they attack the people who are talking about it instead. Typical Trump tactic, which came from the Russians, which has been in the church. And so, let's see, are not provided and contains allegations and statements without proof. Again, go to the source, guy. With most statements made by people who've been taught to hate us. Oh, he pulled a Trump. He pulled a Trump. He pulled a Trump. The Democrats hate us. They hate Trump. And so you get that reporter when Nancy Pelosi is talking about It wasn't even the impeachment, it was something else. But the reporter at the end got to ask her, do you hate Trump? See, that was a fishing question based on what Trump was accusing her of. And the reporter was helping Trump to bait Nancy Pelosi. And he sort of got her, but her reply was, I don't hate anyone. I'm a Catholic. I am offended that you would even dare ask that question. So, sort of put him in his place, but she still fell for it. Because that was the bait. They're looking for anything to avoid the evidence of Trump. And that's what this guy pulled right here. He's accusing the reporter of hating the church. And if he can get the reporter to confess somehow, to come out with a statement, to detract from David Nielsen and his report to the IRS, he's done his job. Don't fall for those tactics. Alright, so, and then he says, we can be sure that because, or been taught to hate us, we can be sure that this report is ineffective. See, he's right, because if you can get the reporter to confess, well, I hate the church, then you can say, well, your report is biased. We can't trust your report. But then use that logic on Fox News. They hate Democrats. We can't trust the report now, can we? So, it's just, please, those of you who are watching, don't fall for these traps that abusive, inhumane persons do to protect themselves from getting in trouble, and to protect institutions and persons in power from having them removed from power, that those people then can no longer justify their actions in society. Because when Trump took over, white supremacist violence skyrocketed and just took off. That's what they wait for. They wait for someone who will support them, who is them. And when they got it, they take full advantage of it. That's why Gary Herbert, governor of Utah, signed the legislative bill to execute the homeless. It's a concerted effort that they've been working on for decades. Back in 2002, they started the Gateway Mall. The Gateway Mall was part of the urban redevelopment program. They put it specifically across the street from the homeless shelter. They knew exactly what they were doing. And they were working with the church, because the church didn't like the homeless panhandling at Temple Square. Because they want people to come to Temple Square and enjoy themselves, and not be harassed by people begging for money that the church is not helping. And so these Mormons in government are also doing this to help the church. And then I've done the videos about all the processes throughout the whole thing. But lately, now that the homeless are spread out into different shelters, they're now getting killed in the streets by cars hitting them. They didn't even bother to put crosswalks when they built the shelters. They just don't care. And they know the church isn't going to help them either. And so Gary Herbert raised taxes again on food. claiming that, well, the poor will get benefits from the tax filings. The poor don't pay taxes, dumbass. They just blatantly lie to cover up what it is they're trying to do. And their abusive hatred towards human beings is just disgusting. And so here the guy finishes with, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has more people committing apostasy. Committing apostasy? See, another trigger word to provoke a response to go, aha, see, you are apostate. You are biased against the church. Therefore, we're not listening to you. And we'll do anything to frame the church. Like I told you in the beginning, this is not about whether or not the church is making interest on money they receive, even if it's tithing. This is about where they get their money from with tithing. From children, from the elderly and the disabled who are receiving Social Security. This is a protection racket. That's a crime. And so by making the accusation that I'm doing, all Mormons know it. I gave tithing to the church as a child when I turned 8 years old. My parents gave me the birthday gift of a bank that had tithing, savings, and can't remember what the other one was. Probably mission. I think they've got those now, but probably spending is probably what it was. But tithing I remember. And I was taught in primary as well as from my parents, you pay 10%. This is what 10% is. I was learning algebra at an 8-year-old level. And just sickening. I mean, that's not an accusation. I mean, reporters have to say the accused, because they get in trouble if they actually make an accusation. The murderer fled, and then the murderer who gets into court can say, the reporters already destroyed my case, Your Honor. They had the whole thing on video and called me the killer. And then the judge goes, oh, I guess you're right. You're free. But yeah, you're innocent until proven guilty. But all of us who have been arrested know bleep, 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 well, that's not the case. The state purposely tortures you to get a confession of guilt, denying you your trial. Studies have shown, and these aren't created stories, they go by the actual cases. Because when a person pleads guilty, okay, that goes in the guilty plea file. Those who actually go to trial go in the trial file. So these are standard measurements. Utah has the highest percentage that are forced to plead guilty. 98%, last I heard. Where the national average is 95%. So Mormons know exactly the crimes the church is committing. This guy, if he's really a Mormon, he knows, because he's done it. He's been an 8-year-old child, most likely. If he's not, if he's a convert, he's seen the 8-year-old children. He can put 2 and 2 together. If I have to pay tithing as I became baptized, that means the 8-year-old child who's now getting the confirmation of the Holy Ghost in the sacrament meeting, which I don't think they do that anymore. But I don't think they did it back then either. I remember, anyway, not talking about my memories. But they know. They know. And so, yes, this is a rant, and I went on for over 30 minutes now. So I don't know if I've lost all of you. But this just is sickening. How Mormons can be so evil to defend the church at all costs, to cover up crime, to cover up sin. Unbelievable. So, I think I'm done. Stop it, Mormons. Just admit it and get out. The church is wrong.